So what we're going to be doing is taking a walk through the XG firewall and how it relates to the MSP program. This is going to be a start to finish. And what I mean by start to finish is we are actually going to start at a brand new XG firewall that has not been configured, has not been licensed, has not been registered, and walk that all the way through the process of being registered, getting brought into Sophos, having a subscription applied to it, and then going and getting that managed either through CFM, SFM, which we're going to discuss the differences on those. So again, taking a look at the agenda here, we're going to go ahead and register the XG firewall. We're going to get that process started. We're going to discuss a little bit about SFM versus CFM. There are two options for you to manage as an MSP, and then we're going to get into the demo here. We are going to cover after the demo what happens if you inherit an XG firewall. Maybe there's a customer move from one MSP to another MSP, and they have to move and shift that over from another partner, or they bought it outside of distribution. What happens from there? Who to contact? We are also going to go into a little bit of an overview of 17.5, some of the new features that came out with that. We'll cover that briefly at the end, and then any remaining questions we'll answer at the end here. So let's start talking about registering your XG firewall with My Sophos. So there's going to be a couple different portals, and I will bring those up as we go along. My Sophos is going to be one of those portals. This is simply a licensing portal. What you're going to do is have an account, and generally what we're going to recommend is going to be an account, a single account that's used for everyone. That way, everyone has access to register these. It's not registered under Steve Weber at Sophos or Travis Simmons at Sophos, so that I'm having to go and constantly request that they log into their account. Typically recommend using something in the line of like XG orders at yourdomain.com, created as a distribution group. The reason for this is part of the registration process. When we go to accept management, you'll see this, is it's going to email the person who is registered as the registered owner of that firewall. If you're using a single address in there and it's coming to me, Steve Weber, as we go to accept management of that device, you're now going to have to contact me and say, hey, I just added a new device to the system here. Can you accept the management of that device? Versus it going to XG orders, everybody has access to it. It's a distribution group. It makes it very easy for all of your techs and engineers on there. Now, this does change a little bit if it is a customer-owned firewall. It is still completely up to you on that aspect. For a customer-owned firewall, there's two ways in which you can handle this. You can keep it under your XG orders distribution group and register everything to you. Essentially, this means that you sold the XG firewall to the customer. They own the hardware. You're just offering them a subscription on there. Or you can register that to a customer's primary contact email address, meaning it's going to be under their account. They're going to have to request the management of that device or accept the management of that device on there. But if they ever transfer or move anything, it's much easier. You don't have to move anything or transfer anything out of your My Sophos account. So it really just helps in the long term. Being that we're talking MSP, most firewalls, I would assume, are going to be partner owned. So taking a look at CFM versus SFM. All right, so these are both what we call our firewall managers. There is CFM, which is going to be your central firewall manager. That is going to exist inside of the central partner dashboard. This is a cloud-based firewall manager. There's no cost to you as a partner to get set up and start using this. There's nothing for you to host. One of the only, I guess you can call it downfalls on there is it is a multi-stage onboarding process. We will go through that here. I'll show you that process inside of here. The other one is going to be SFM. SFM is going to be an on-premise virtual firewall manager. We'll take a look at that as well. It does require the partner to host this on-site. You can host it in Azure. It is a little bit of a process to host it in Azure because it is a nested system that's running inside of there. But it does simplify the onboarding process. It does have better performance because it's not shared with all of our other partners out there. And you do have access to the back-end diagnostic logs because it is your virtual appliance. On the CFM, if there's any problems, anything going on the back end, you do need to reach out to Sophos support. So each have their pros and cons on there. One, you have to give up some resources to run there and you have to manage it yourself and update it yourself. But you do get better performance. The other one is completely hosted by us. It may have a slight performance decrease. Again, it is shared resources across everyone. All right, so let's go ahead and start digging into this. We're gonna get started right away with an actual demo, going into what we're actually looking at inside the XG firewall. All right, so this is going to be your welcome screen. The first time you actually go ahead and get logged into your XG firewall, this is a screen you're going to get to. Our web admin port on there is going to be the IP address of the LAN interface on there. It is HTTPS. You have 4444 as your web admin portal. As soon as you go to that page, we're going to be brought into here. Now, once we go in, we're going to go ahead and walk through this entire process on here. There are a couple different options. So if this is a brand new unit, it's the first unit we're deploying out there, we simply start by going ahead and putting in a password for this device, making sure that it meets all of our criteria on there. I would recommend that you don't do the latest firmware during the setup. It just complicates the process a little further. And then check your agree on here. Now, before we pass this screen, just a couple of components on here. If this was, let's say, a 135 that you had for a customer, and we have an RMA or something happened, or you bought new hardware, maybe there's a new rev out and you want to get them up on the latest and greatest 135, you purchase that. There is an option to restore backups. You take a backup from the current 135, maybe you get a rev 1 and you want to move them to a rev 3. We can now click this process here to restore the backup from there without having to run through this entire process. Also, if you're doing HA, so if you have high availability set up, and this is your second unit that you're going to be bringing on, you would actually click this instead of walking through the main process, the connect as HA spare. And based on the setup you did in the primary unit, we're not going to cover HA in this call, but I do want to point it out here. You would set this up inside of here to where you would actually match all the networks, the HA network on the side, the IP address of your backup unit on there, so that way you can connect and build that HA between the two. So continuing on here, once we've set our password in there, we've accepted our license agreement, we're going to be being brought into the firewall name on here. I do recommend you guys put some sort of a name that makes sense to you. You can leave it as just the IP address, really up to you. We're just going to call this demo 1 because that's what it is in my environment. And then we're going to select our time zone on here. You can either update your time on here to the current time or just wait for it to actually go ahead and pull that from an NTP server when it's actually up and running. So this is the part here we're going to spend a few moments on here. So if this is a brand new firewall and we have an existing serial number, which I do for this one, you'll have a license schedule, which is shown over here on the right-hand side, and it'll have your serial numbers available inside of it. We can go ahead and grab that. Now, this is in the case of a virtual firewall. In the case of a physical firewall, this serial number will be in here automatically because it is a hardware-based appliance, and you're going to have the serial number from the hardware. If it's a virtual firewall, we're going to be giving you a serial number to populate in here that's going to be attached to the base license. If you're just setting this up, maybe you're you want to set a 30-day trial up for a customer, you don't have one, simply select I don't have one, start a trial. The other option is going to be if you're a Sophos partner already and you've been selling the SG firewall, which runs our UTM-9, and you want to upgrade that existing firewall. What you're going to do is you're going to log into the My UTM portal. You're going to download the UTM-9 license file. And what you'll do is you'll select this and you'll upload that license file. What that'll do is it'll take that license, what the time that is remaining on that, and convert that license into an XG firewall. If it's a license for FullGuard Plus with 6 months remaining, you will now have FullGuard Plus on the XG firewall with 6 months remaining. And if you don't want to register now, you want to come and deal with all of this stuff later, you can select the box, don't register now. It'll let you go basically for 30 days on there. And at that point in time, it will require you to go ahead and set up an account. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put in an existing serial number that we have. This is a license schedule. This is my license schedule that I just requested in here. You'll get this from Sophos the moment you go ahead and actually purchase an appliance. It'll have the serial numbers with your actual appliance in there, what they are in there, what the license is going to be. Base licenses are always perpetual in the environment, and what the start date is on those. So at this point, we'll simply paste that in here and continue through the process. So what this is doing at this point is it's going ahead and applying the serial number to this virtual appliance. Again, if this was hardware, that would already be in there, and it's going to bring me to the next step. So this is the point in which we're talking registration. And this is where, if it's a customer-owned device or a partner-owned device, we're going to go ahead and set it up and attach it to there. Now, if you already have a Sophos account, you can just simply hit sign in. If this is the first time you're deploying a Sophos and you don't have an account yet, simply hit create Sophos ID. Or if you're wanting to set up that XG orders and you have a distribution group already set up and you want to create a brand new account, you can go ahead and create Sophos ID here as well. I'm going to go ahead and sign in with my normal account on here, which thankfully I have everything saved. So again, this is going to be my partner account. Just to show you here, I've got my MSP partner account. This is where my partner portal is. This is where my partner dashboard is. And then what I have is I'm going to actually assign this under my local SE account, so under my Steve Weber at Sophos account. And I'll bring both of those up in a second. We'll see how they look inside of the My Sophos, the options that you get. And then once we log into the partner portal, and we'll show you where to go from there. So this is going to go ahead and verify. It's going to register the appliance on here. It's going to say, welcome back. It recognizes that I already have a My Sophos account. It's listing the serial number for there. Simply verify that you are not a robot and continue on through this. Now what it's going to do is basically receive all the details on there. It's going to confirm the model type. We are going to confirm registration. Now it's going ahead and populating all that information in the back end for us into your My Sophos account. What it's going to do once it hits that My Sophos account, it's going to allow us to initialize a device license synchronization, which we can initiate from here. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring that base license into the XG firewall. This will also bring us right back into the XG firewall setup wizard, and we can continue on through the steps here. All right, so at this point, basic setup is complete on this device. We can see how we have our base license inside of here, expiration date of $29.99. You can either opt in or opt out of the customer improvement experience, completely up to you. And at this point, if you wanted to jump straight into the actual XG firewall, you can hit skip to finish. Most people actually like to go through the rest of the setup wizard on here, and we're going to do that just for demo purposes on here. So we're going to go in, and you can see you've got your LAN configuration options on here. So this is configuring my LAN port. You can see it's in firewall mode. The IP addresses that I do have set on there. Because this is on my local network, I am going to go ahead and remove DHCP. The majority of you are probably going to want to go ahead and leave this on. It is going to cover your IP ranges that are available. If you need to increase that up to the max 254, you can definitely do that as well. The option down here at the bottom, so if this was a device you're bringing in as a test, you're not replacing the current firewall, you want to put this in Discover mode or what's called tap mode in there, this is where you can go through and enable that process as well. Again, we're not going to cover that on this call. We can definitely, if there's enough interest on there, we can cover that in a later call. So on this screen, this is really up to you. Now, me personally, I leave everything on here unchecked. What this is actually going to do is it's going to select the, protecting, basically turning on intrusion prevention for network threats. It's setting up your network firewall rules, determining whether or not you're going to allow suspicious activity from websites. Are we scanning files? Are we sending things up to Sandstorm? For the most part, I do this actually in the firewall while I'm building out my rules very specifically of what networks they're going to and where they're actually getting to on the internet. If you just want a very quick and easy setup, you can run through and select all of these or whichever ones you happen to want in the environment. Again, for me, I leave this as blank and continue to configure those later on. Probably an important part on here, backups and notifications of where do we want to actually send these. So in my case, we're just going to send these to test at mytestlab.us. So that's where we're going to send all of those. And then the sender on here, for my case, it's just going to be xgdemo1. So these will send automatically directly from the firewall. So it's going to send from a no reply. It's got a built-in SMTP server on it. If you do have an external email server you want to use, you can select that inside of here. I will tell you there is a little bit of a hiccup on there. Some of the encryption that is required for Office 365 for us to basically connect to an Office 365 SMTP server, doesn't quite match up on here. It's something to do with the TLS communication. That is something that will be addressed. It's just not going to be addressed until we get to version 18 of the XG firewall. If you do leave this just as send weekly, it's going to send it out directly from the actual XG firewall to your Office 365 account, to your Gmail account, to your personal domain accounts, whatever the case may be on there, and it should get through without any issues. And at this point, it's just going to give us a summary of what we have set up on the actual XG firewall. And at this point, we can just click Finish. Now, this is going to go through a finishing process on here. It is going to take a couple of minutes to run through, apply all of the changes, and then reboot that firewall in the back end. Again, this process could take upwards of 5 minutes. So instead of waiting for this, what I have is an XG firewall here that is ready to go. It's made it to basically just the process and steps we're at right now. It's been registered, it's been walked through all the setup on there, and it's basically sitting live ready for us to go. This firewall, again, same thing, virtual firewall. It's running our 17.1 MR4, which is the latest current firmware out there, unless you grab the brand new GA directly from my Sophos. I can show you where to grab that as well. We can see the serial number for this one as well. All my interfaces and everything are up and running. No security heartbeat or synchronized security has been set up for this device. Now, what we'll do is we'll come in, and this is going to be a good landing page for everybody to have readily available. It's id.sophos.com. id.sophos.com is going to bring you to this sign-on page. Rather than going through sophos.com, then the Sophos Partner Portal, and then into the Sophos Partner Dashboard, this is going to be a landing page for you to get into all of those features. And what we're going to do first is I'm going to log into my SE account so we can see where those devices are actually registered under the My Sophos. So when I log into here, I can see the only two that I have access to is the Sophos Community. We do have a great community of users out there, tech people, partners, people that use our home product on there, both our firewall and our endpoint. So it's a great community we have at Sophos. Definitely recommend you guys check this if you have any issues, or maybe you're trying to figure out how to do something on there. Obviously, reach out to us as well if it's an actual technical problem or an issue with the actual XG firewall. We definitely want to be involved in that and bring that to support's attention. But if there's just questions you have on, hey, how can I do this? How can I do that? The community is definitely a great place. Somebody's probably already asked that question in the past. So we're going to click into My Sophos. And again, this is going to be simply just the registration portal. It's where that base license actually gets registered to. You will see endpoint protection and server. This has to do with our on-premise endpoint protection, so we can just ignore that for this case. And we're going to click into network protection. Now, a couple of pieces to take note of in here. Contact information. So this contact information that is inside of here is what is going to display on the XG firewall. So let's come into this XG firewall that is registered. We're going to come into my administration. It's going to bring me up to our licensing tab. We can see this is licensed and registered to Steve Weber at Sophos. There's a contact person, the Sophos sales engineering, and again, the details about this. That matches up exactly with the contact information that's inside of here. If I was to make a change to this, sales engineering 1, demo, whatever, and then updated that license file on here, that change would be reflected on the actual device itself. So this name inside of there, this Sophos sales engineering, is also up here at the top. Those are going to be populated from the My Sophos portal. So the only other reason you may want to have individual customer accounts on there is if you absolutely have to have the customer name listed inside here, just making it easy and making sure they have exactly which machine on there. There is no way currently to have, other than your company name, have a customer name listed inside of here. Will be something we'll look at in the future, but as of right now, the way everything's built, it does not work that way. So if you need to see the customer's name inside of here, you will need a separate My Sophos account for that. Now, we were talking about having to transfer devices from My Sophos accounts to another My Sophos account. Again, if it happens to be inside of here, you can do that quickly and easily. We click on Change Registrant. What this is going to do is pull up all the details. you'll have the option to change the registrant on a device and accept. So you'd have to go to the account that you are sending it to and accept to bring that in. What you would do here is simply click on this. It's going to retrieve the details, any eligible device inside of here. We'd be able to select that. So with my webinar firewall on here, 1, 2, or 3, or my hardware-based firewalls, we would be able to select that. Once we select it inside the environment, it's going to ask us where do we want to actually send that to, who is going to be the new registrant of that firewall. So it's going to show the actual firewall here, and we have our to address, and we would then have to log on to that portal. This will deregister the firewall inside of your account, so if you are going to do this, make sure you go back and re-accept the management of that device. So taking a look at the policies here, so basically the devices all inside of my system. We're going to take a look at this one in particular. Here's my serial number for this device. Let's copy that out so we can find it. So this is going to be the serial number, brand new registered firewall inside of here. What I would recommend, this is going to show your registration date. What I'd recommend is that you hit edit on here. This is also going to be what pulls down for billing information on there as well. And we can call this demo 2, which is what this one is in my environment. And basically that allows you, looking at this portal here, to have some sort of an indication as to what firewall, who this is, whether this is customer ABC, whether this is my NFR license, whatever the case may be on there. Also, while we're on here, you have this option for download. So we're on 17.1.4 right now. If I wanted to go ahead and download the latest and greatest, now our GAs, when we release those, are staged releases. So 17.5 is not going to hit every firewall all at the same time. If you want to get that early before it is stage released to you, you can see that is available here. Everything that's available here is general availability. You simply hit download on this, and we'd come into the firmware of the device itself, and we'd upload it into there. So that's how you would get the latest and greatest before your device is actually pegged for general availability and release date on that. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and log out of my my Sophos account here, and we're going to log into the partner dashboard. So at this point, both XG firewalls are up and running, the brand new one we just did, as well as the other one that I did previously. And what we're going to want to do is log into the partner dashboard. So I'm going to log in using my partner account. Everybody here should have a partner account. That gets them into the partner portal, as well as the partner dashboard and Sophos Central Firewall Manager. If it's the first time you're using Central Firewall Manager, there is a request button inside of the partner dashboard. You will have to request access to that. That request is typically filled within a few hours. So again, this page changed here a little bit. So it's the same spot I was at, id.sophos. My last account only had access to the My Sophos Community portal. Now that I'm on as my partner account, I have access to my partner portal and my central partner dashboard, as well as my firewall manager. When you set up your partner dashboard for the first time, you will need to log in with two-factor authentication. There is options for SMS, and there's also an option for Google Authenticator. Personally, and this is a personal preference, you can use whichever way you want. Google Authenticator is going to be the fastest and most reliable method. It's always going to be on you. You don't have to wait for a text message to come through out of our system into your cellular provider system and then to your phone. You simply pull up your authenticator and the token is readily available for you. So again, personal preference for me, I would recommend maybe setting up both options. You can set more than one option in there. You can't do that when you first sign in, but if you actually come to your settings and policies and click on login settings, this is where you manage your multi-factor, and you can add multiple options inside of there. That way, if you're not getting a text for whatever reason, either your provider's not sending it or maybe it's getting delayed out of our system, you can then hit your fallback over to your Google Authenticator. Another thing is going to be, make sure you guys keep track of what pins you use when you first sign up. It is going to ask you to set up your authentication method, and then it's going to ask for a pin. That pin is not just something crazy we ask you to sign on there. That is used for account recovery. If for some reason you've lost your phone, you don't have your Google Authenticator, your SMS is not working, you can then use email and PIN. We'll actually send you an email to your account, and you'll be able to authenticate that way and then update your logon settings accordingly. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into Firewall Approvals, and we're going to take a look for our particular firewalls in here. We'll go ahead and grab this one. And basically, I should have this listed in my firewall. So basically, I have not sent a request for approval as of this point. We'll go ahead and search for this device. There's my Sophos standard firewall on here, my virtual 2-core, 4 gig of RAM serial number. And basically, at this point, what I want to do is request management of that device. So at this point, I don't have the ability to manage this device. It's just a device that I partner own on there or a customer owned. Either case, they're all in the same portal on here. I do have to request management of that device. So we're going to go ahead and select that inside of here. Give it a second to process my request. And basically, this will now be put as a pending approval inside of the environment. If I had more than one firewall, we'll go ahead and register both of these in the system while we're here. So if we have additional firewalls we want to register in the environment or request to manage, we can do those as well. Now, at this point, we will get an email to your main account. It's going to ask you to click on that link, which will bring you back to your My Sophos account. What I'm going to do at this point, we're going to simply skip taking a look at the email and running through that process. I'm going to log directly into my Sophos account so we can then see what it looks like inside of here, how we accept those inside of the environment. So I'm logging into my SE account, which is where I registered these firewalls to. We're going to take a look at the devices when we get into the My Sophos, and you'll see that there will be requests pending for those to manage those devices. All right, so coming into our devices here, we'll go ahead and we can see both of them inside of here, my VM lab, both these two firewalls on here, and we see status managed for those. Let's look up my actual serial numbers here. And we can see approval pending. So at this point, we will have to select this. And down here at the bottom, you'll be able to select on here that we want to accept the selected. It's going to ask, make sure now if you had more than one firewall listed, you can select more than one on there as well. I've got quite a few firewalls. We'd have to search for them. And we simply say, yes, we want to go ahead and approve management of that particular device. And we'll come in and we'll do the same thing for the other firewall in my environment. And we can see this one is also pending approval. And we'll just tell it to accept all of them. So at this point, we should have both of our firewalls managed and ready to go. This will take a few seconds to synchronize across. They'll show status as managed now inside of the environment. And if we log back into our Sophos partner dashboard, we'll be able to get in and request an actual license for these. So when requesting a license for those, there are two methods which you can do. You can send an email to, I believe it is xgorders at sophos.com. You'll have to give us the serial number. So if you wanted to request a license prior to actually getting everything set up inside of here, you'll need to send the serial number of the appliance as well as what subscription do you want to apply to that. There are 4 subscriptions on there: your Enterprise Guard Plus, Full Guard, and Full Guard Plus. Won't go into what's covered on each of those under this, but you can look up each one of those and determine which product is actually going to be needed for you, which subscription. All right, at this point, we are going to be done with the My Sophos. We don't have to go back into there. Everything's been registered. Everything's been accepted for management inside of here. We can now come in, take a look at our firewalls, and you'll see the option and the ability on there to request. Now, this does not apply, but this requests for those firewalls the actual, here's my top 2 right here, the actual subscription that's going to be applied to these. So if this particular firewall here, we needed Enterprise Guard Plus, we can now go ahead and hit save. You will see that this says it can take up to 3 business days to complete. Meanwhile, you can go ahead and enable a trial on the actual XG firewall. That way you're up and running. You don't have to wait for this. They will send you a license file. That license file is going to be containing the key, which gets applied to the actual XG firewall itself. So we come into an XG firewall here, and we come under Administration and Licensing. This is where you would click on to activate your subscription, and it's going to ask for that key from your licensing schedule that would be sent. There is no expiration on it, so you'll see that the subscription on there will have a $29.99 expiration date on there as well. We'll be extending all those out automatically, basically verify the key, and that device is now registered. You can see over here under pending that I have Enterprise Guard Plus pending for this particular device. And if we wanted to say Full Guard Plus for this device here, again, depending on which device it is, which customer it's going to, we now have those available. Now, talking about assigning the firewalls here, you can see I can see the registered to. Now, this is actually, we're actually working on getting this name changed because this is not who it is registered to. This is not, if not, this would show Sophos Sales Engineering. It's registered to me. This is actually going to be the owner of the device. You'll also have an assigned to field on here. So what this allows you to do, and you can see it's properly named here, the owned by. So this is when you bought the firewall. If you bought it and sold it to a customer, you would have given us the customer name. Their name would now appear in there as they own that firewall. If it was purchased under you as a partner, your name would be in there as you own the firewall. But now we need to assign this to a particular customer. That way we know which customer has this particular firewall if it is partner owned. We can do that quickly and easily. If you have a managed customer already in here, you can go ahead and select them. If not, click on Create New Managed Customer. This doesn't affect anything else. It does create a Sophos Central account for them, but does not apply any licenses, does not apply any additional billing on there. For me, we're going to go ahead and select my Steve. I've got a few Steve Weber accounts in here, and we're going to tie this one to my Steve Weber lab. Go ahead and
Hey,
save.
Steve, when we're ready to pause, we've got some questions that I think are relevant for this.
Okay, absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and save that in there. We can now see that that one has been brought into my Steve Weber lab. And if we came into the other one here, same thing. We'll apply a customer to this. We'll apply a different customer in this case. We'll do my lab 3. There was nothing applied to that. Hit save, and we can now see there's Steve Weber lab 3. Here's this one's applied. If you ever need to come back in here, change, maybe this customer left, you need to take back your firewall, you can unassign this or simply select a new customer to assign this if it's now being moved over to another customer. So this assign to is what you're going to be using inside of here to determine who actually has this firewall, where is it deployed at. So before we jump into CFM, so you have to request a management first and foremost before we do, have even the ability to get into CFM. But before we do that, let's say you needed to remove this Enterprise Guard Plus from a particular firewall on here. Once they're actually out of the pending state and it is actually fully licensed on that device, you simply select that inside of here and you can select none. Or if you need to upgrade it, maybe to Full Guard Plus, or maybe select it to Enterprise Guard and you want to upgrade that to Enterprise Guard Plus. If you need to select this to none, hit save on there. That will notify the order team that, hey, we need to remove the license from this particular serial number. That way you no longer get billed for it. All right, so let's take a look and start talking CFM and SFM. So right off the bat, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my SFM. Give me a second to pull that up here. Here's my Firewall Manager. And this is going to be the on-premise appliance. I'm going to cover this one first, and then we'll go into CFM, which requires a few more details. So when you get to your Firewall Manager page on here, it's going to look like you're logging into an XG firewall. We simply pull that up, and it's going to bring you into the dashboard. When we get into CFM, you're going to notice that this is 100% identical to CFM. Nothing inside of here changes. The only thing we need to do at this point is in an actual XG firewall, and we'll use the second one on here. That way we have 2 different firewalls to play with. We'll go under administration, we'll go into central management, and we can turn on the central management settings. You'll be given 2 options in here. One's going to be SFM, one's going to be CFM. For SFM, the only thing you have to do is put in the IP address, which is 7.254. So we'll go ahead and put that inside of here and hit save on there. There are a couple different options you can do on here. By default, everything is push. So the difference of when to use, and this applies to both CFM and SFM. So the differences on when to use push versus fetch. If this firewall has a static IP address, it has a valid internet IP address, I would recommend going ahead and using the push method. That means as soon as you make a change on CFM or SFM, it is pushing instantly out to the firewall. If that firewall is sitting behind another firewall, which is the case of this particular firewall here, then you'd want to set it to fetch. Basically, we can't contact it. So it's going to go and reach out to the firewall manager on a schedule. I think it's like every 5 minutes. Give it the port that your firewall manager is actually sitting on. In my case, it is using the default. And what it's going to do is it's going to reach out to that firewall manager to pull down any new configuration settings or updates on there. You can also do update management from there as well. Basically, anything that hits the your SFM or CFM, you can pull down the updates directly from there. That way you can keep all your devices updated, or you can have that device pull down directly from Sophos. Either option will work on there. So once we hit apply, it's basically going to go and register out to your Sophos Firewall Manager. This should update within a second here, if it can contact it, and I have not tested that. And of course, live demo is not going to work the way I want it to. All right, well, that's going to take a moment inside of here. We'll come back and take a look at that. But essentially what you do is it'd be in Discover mode. You would see the appliance listed here. There'd be a little plus symbol, and then we would walk through the registration process of bringing it into SFM. Again, this is all under your resources. Everything on here that you see is going to be exactly the same as we're going to do in CFM. The only difference is this is running on my resources, so it is much quicker, much faster in the environment. And I do have access to diagnostics logs, network information, and maintenance on the system, things you're not going to have access to inside of CFM. So taking a look at this from the CFM side, we'll manage a firewall through here. So come in to CFM. Now, before we actually can see the firewall in CFM, remember it does have to have a request to manage on there. And we do have to come into the actual firewall. We use our first one in here. We're going to manage that, and we are going to select it for CFM. This is basically going to send it up to our central firewall manager, allowing it to be populated inside of there. And this is where we're going to address that question of what do we do if we can't see our firewall in there. Since I just did this, it's not going to be synchronized. I'm not going to see that in there right at the moment. That's not one of my firewalls. What's the number on this one? This one is Y1B. All right. So what we're waiting for is Y1B to populate inside of here. So we don't see that as of yet. Now, if you're in this case where it just hasn't synchronized for whatever reason, you can actually come in system and monitor. This does need to be your primary account admin on there to do this. And if you select accounts, what you'll get, and this is the primary admin who can do this only, is you'll get this synchronize option. Unfortunately, it is only primary admin. There's no other person that can do this. You select synchronize, and what that's going to do is force it to pull all the records from the backend, from the My Sophos portal, from the partner portal, and bring those into the central firewall manager. Once this actually synchronizes the data across there inside of your devices, you'll now have a new device populated in there, which will be my Y1B firewall. So if you're not seeing it immediately, what you should do before calling support or freaking out or doing anything else on there, have the system primary system admin log in, select system and monitoring, select accounts, and hit synchronize. Basically just does a force. Now, synchronizations are automatic. They do take some time. I believe it's every 5 to 10 minutes. It will do a synchronization on the back end. If you're impatient and don't want to wait for that, then just click that synchronize button and you can see it's now populated inside of here. At this point, the only thing we need to do is hit the add. We're going to add this device into the inventory, and we're going to give it a device name. Now, for device name, I would highly recommend that you use some sort of a 3-digit, 4-digit identifier for the customer. You can use a full customer name if you wanted to. These are going to be mine for my SRW, so we're just going to use SRW in here. And this is demo 1. Simply identifies to me that what customer it belongs to, so I can quickly and easily find it. You can also build groups, which we'll talk about here in just a minute as well. And then it shows the serial number and IP address. So under IP address, I would probably recommend, if this is a static WAN address, you probably have a DNS record set up for this. I would go ahead and set up that DNS record for this particular device. Now, this one we won't be able to reach because it's under push and it's behind another firewall. So again, I would need to come into here under central management and actually change this to fetch so that it's actually pulling down that information. So definitely want to have that. This isn't really relevant if you're doing push, but for push or fetch, sorry, but if you're doing push, you definitely want to have more over the IP address, a domain name, so DNS name. Then what are we going to do to log into this? Simply providing your information. If this is on the WAN, you can go ahead and test this connection at this point. Mine would actually fail because it is behind another firewall. You can add a description in here, and you can also enable the change control. Definitely something I would recommend on the firewall. Basically gives you a revision list of who made changes, who pushed out the last template changes to a firewall, anything else inside of the environment. So at this point, we're going to select next. We can select the users that can manage this device. I'm going to go ahead and leave this blank, so I'm going to show you another way in which to do this. If you did want to add one user that has access to this, you can do that as well. Firmware options, again, I would probably recommend that you do not do a firmware upgrade on this device when it is being brought in. Now, if this is being restored, so this is a device that you brought on site, got a replacement or an upgrade, whatever the case may be, and you already had another device in here, 135, it does have to be the exact same model, so it'd be a 135 to 135. You cannot go from a 135 to a 210 at this point through this console. You can then set to yes, I want to restore this, and you would then find your device and select your backup for that particular device, essentially restoring the configuration into that device. You can also upload a backup if you so wish on there. Maybe have maybe they're not doing backups inside of CFM. You can set that and do that manually inside of here. If you wanted to have, if you had a template, so if you had a base template inside of here that you want to configure this device with, either your web and app template for mine, a corp template for a main demo on there, an advanced customer template, you can select that and have that pushed out to the device immediately as well. That's completely up to you. These are actually very, very useful to set up templates inside of here, allow you to configure some default services, default rules for getting inbound and outbound access, pushing object templates that you need inside of there, making sure they have all the objects they need. So these templates are very useful. Not going to go into great detail on template building. If you have questions on that, let us know. We can set up another webinar and cover just templates on here if we need to. And at this point, simply just your summary on here of what we're actually going to do this firewall and then finish. At this point, it will, if it was on fetch, this one's actually on push, it'll actually never hit it. It'll reach out, it'll start a synchronization of that device, and once that device is in here, it'll show up as one of your managed devices. So we can see this virtual LAN here. It is fully synchronized. It's got a check mark in here. You can see the IP address of where it's coming from, the version that is running on this particular device. This is an SG115W, so this was a convert from a UTM-9 to an XG firewall. And then all the services that are currently enabled on this one. So as you can see here, this one has a base license only. It does not have any subscriptions on there at all. At this point, you can come in and manage any of these devices. You simply do this under device configuration. You can either hit select devices up here at the top right, or you can click it right here and you'll be able to find those particular devices, select it in the environment, and click OK. It is not going to have the same dashboard as you would see on an actual XG firewall. It is going to look a little bit different. If we take a look at the control center here, you've got your standard XG firewall dashboard. When this actually does decide to bring this up. And again, this is one of those components where CFM, it's a shared resource, so it will take a little bit longer pulling devices up, and this one is taking its sweet time, unfortunately.
Quick question, Steve, while you're doing that.
Quick question, yeah, waiting on this one.
Question where you set up templates, and there's also a request for a full webinar focused on templates only.
Yeah, we can definitely do a webinar for templates only. Templates are set up here under templates. I'll move to the Firewall Manager to show you that. So under templates here, you can come through, you select your templates. This is my Corp Web and App template. You can create a brand new template. If you create a new template, you can create one from scratch. You can import one from a device already existing on your item, or if you want to clone one of your current templates, you can do that as well. Simply name your template and away you go. Inside the template, it's going to look exactly like an XG firewall. You set up firewall rules if that's what you want in here. This one for me is my web and app template. So the only thing I do inside of here is I have a corp policy, which you can see is in use in a firewall rule. And I set up any of my usability features inside of here, what they're allowed to do. Social networking is blocked except during lunch hours. Sports are getting warned inside of here. Same thing with the applications on there. I can set up all my application filters in the environment. I have a corp policy for that as well, allowing which applications are going to be pushed out to the firewall. This is great if you have that corp policy and you have it assigned to your default policy, and you have everybody under one blanket. Here's our corporate policy or our MSP policy on there. You can now push that out and apply that. Anytime I update this, I would simply come through. I can say provision template. Now, in this case, I'm not wanting to provision everything. So I'm going to come through and select just to update my policies. And if we're in the applications, maybe just to update my application filters. I simply select confirm to decide whether or not we want to do that immediately or schedule that at a certain time. You can do it based on the device's time zone as well. You do want to override the current configuration, and then you can do this based on device or device group. Simply select those devices and hit save, and it'll push that policy out to those devices. So updating the web and the application filters in this case. All right, so talking about groups, we need to cover this real quick, and then I'm going to jump back into our slide real quick to cover a little bit of 17.5. So when you come into an XG firewall and you start adding additional, so this is when we want to add any other user other than the primary user. We're going to want to come in under Manage Devices. So by default, any new admin you bring into the system does not have access to any of the firewalls. So if we come into device groups, rather than having to go in each and every time and set up and add that user to a particular firewall, we can actually use these device groups with discovery on there to have those assigned. So I have an all MSP firewalls. I also have a Sophos engineering, which are my firewalls indicated in there. What you'll simply do is hit add. We can call this all firewalls, which apparently I can't spell. And then we select our device criteria. What I recommend is using country. This is going to be probably the easiest one on there. You will have to have a firewall already in Sophos Central and already synced. Chances are you're only doing business in one country. If not, you can add multiple countries in here. So far inside here, all the firewalls are just inside the United States. Apply any firewall now, because I'm listing this as all firewalls. Any firewall that is inside the United States is going to be listed in here. So now that we have this set up for the all firewalls, we can actually come in under the administration, and this is going to be a little different for, let me see if I can get this under CFM, because it is a little different in here. So it's not under accounts for CFM. That is a little misleading because there are no accounts under here. It is under administration, and you will see your users inside of here. This is exactly the same for SFM as well. So if you're doing this under SFM, you just don't have an accounts option here. You click under administration and you'll see your users inside of here. And what you'll do is you'll grab one of those new users in the environment, so this temp user, and we'll edit that account. We can make them either an administrator, meaning they have full access to everything in CFM or SFM. They can get to all the device monitors, alerts, schedules, make changes. Or you can just make them a device administrator, meaning that they have access to log in and administer those devices. And what you'll do is click on device.
If it's a customer user and they want to give access, say role-based access to a customer, you do that directly on the firewall, not from the firewall manager, correct?
Well, correct. So customers have zero access to CFM. Now, if you have SFM, and you wanted to give, and say the customer had 5 firewalls you're managing, and you also want to give them access to those 5 firewalls, you can come through. This is customer login with their password. You select them as a device administrator, and you can select the firewalls that they have access. They will only be able to see information on these firewalls. Cannot do that on CFM. CFM, there's no way to bring a partner into the partner dashboard, and nor would you want to bring a partner into the partner dashboard, because it's going to give them access to all of your information on the back end, which you're not going to want to have access to all your customers for the central accounts. So SFM can do that, CFM cannot do that. So under the device groups here, this is where we can come in. We can select the all firewalls. For my case, it's going to be the all MSP firewalls. And this is going to be anything that matches that United States, that category on there. Any new firewall that gets added is automatically going to be assigned to this user here. You can use those device groups for criteria such as a customer name as well. So if you're using that identifier, that SRW for the customer name on there, and you add a new customer, so you're doing just a device administrator for that customer, and as you assign new firewalls to them, they can see all those firewalls as well by using that device discovery group. So that's going to be one of the biggest components on there. That's kind of one of the biggest hurdles is, this admin on here does not mean that they're an admin and can view every single device. It just means they're an admin. They can, get into the maintenance, firmware, scheduled tasks, device monitor, event viewer, things of that sort. Device administrator is probably what you're going to want to use the most. You don't want your admins playing with everything other than just the firewalls. You want to leave that up to your primary admin. And again, device groups are great ways to make sure that anything gets onboarded, gets brought in, and everybody can see it. So I do want to talk 17.5, what gets brought in there, and show you a little bit on that real quick. 17.5 was just released. So we're talking, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we just released this. It is in GA. You can go through the My Sophos to get access to that. Everything else on there is the same. We're bringing in some new features. Under threat protection, one of the biggest components on there is lateral movement protection. This is really talking about the synchronized security approach that we have at Sophos. If you are using our endpoint and our firewall, you have that synchronized security today. We can already go ahead and stop it from getting out to the internet through the firewall. With 17.5, we can also go ahead and have the firewall reach out to all the other endpoints on the network and let them know that you are in a bad state, and if you try to reach out laterally to them, to go ahead and deny that communication. There's also upgraded and increased sandboxing, basically bringing in all the technology from our InterceptX product and testing that against our sandbox. There's also new integration features with IPS. So we do OEM the Talos signature, which has now been integrated into the IPS to basically further enhance that product as well. If you have anything in the education vertical, there are some new tools inside of there for that. Chromebook support being probably the biggest one on there. It's the Chromebook authentication support. There is a setup process on that to get it connected to your Google admin account. And essentially, as they log on to that Chromebook, there's a policy that'll be deployed out to there with an application. It's a Sophos Authentication application. And at that point, we can push policies down to the Chromebooks of where they're allowed to go, basically being filtered and knowing which user is actually associated to that device. Coming soon, and this is not with 17.5, but it will be 17.5 MR1, you'll have our brand new APXs, which will be able to be managed on the XG firewall. And we have a brand new IPsec client, which is being released as well. So for lateral movement protection on there, again, basically broadcasts on the same domain, letting every other device know that this one endpoint in here is infected. If he tries to reach out, go ahead and deny that action. This is another feature that just got brought in there as well. So if you're using our authentication methods currently, you're using STAS or you're using the authentication agent itself, if you have synchronized security already set up, and this does require that you have an Active Directory domain, it does not work with local authentication. If you have our Sophos endpoint installed on there, there's nothing else that you need to do. It's actually going to pull that authentication information for that Active Directory client directly from the endpoint and feed that over to the XG firewall. So this means if you have AD set up on a network and you already have our Sophos Central endpoint with an XG firewall, there is no need to go through and set up the Sophos STAS, basically our authentication suite, on one of your AD controllers so that we can synchronize that data across. It's going to come directly from the endpoints themselves. The Sophos IPsec VPN. So we are releasing with 17.5 a brand new IPsec VPN client for Windows and Mac day one. Biggest component on here is this is going to be absolutely free. So you can come in, you can get the client. It's going to be available inside the XG firewall. Download it for Windows and Mac if you need more than just an SSL VPN connectivity. You want IPsec, we want better performance on there. It still has the same ease of deployment. You're going to be able to download the file. It is going to be downloaded from an admin on there. Simply download the configuration file, drop it into the Sophos Connect client, and hit connect. They put in their username and password, and away you go. Again, this is free for partners, free for customers. Great utility to use and utilize in your environment. SSL VPN is still there, so if SSL VPN is something you're wanting to use on there, that is deployed out from the user portal versus just directly through the web admin. The user does have to log on, download their installation file, which has their certificates inside of it, and deploy it out. It's just as easy. SSL VPN does come with, it's a little less on the performance side. Actually quite a bit less than IPsec, which is why a lot of people tend to lean towards an IPsec VPN. SSL is great just for a quick and easy connectivity on there. This also supports the synchronized security for remote users as well. So as they're connected through the Sophos Connect client, it will report back. It will forward that information, that security heartbeat information, over to the XG firewall. So if that endpoint does go into a red state while they're connected remotely, it will still have the rules on there for the synchronized security. If they go in a red heartbeat, no longer get allowed to get across the VPN tunnel. So again, education features on there, the Chromebook Authentication, classroom web policy overrides, which is huge. You have an override code that can be assigned out to a teacher if there's a particular website that's being blocked as games or whatever the case, and they need to allow that student to access it. They can put in an override code, and it allows that content. It doesn't add it to an allow list. It simply allows that for that period of time that they're logged into there. Some updated base policies for safe search and YouTube, and then dynamic content filtering as well, basically allowing you to go in and set terms on there. That way we can identify signs of bullying, abuse, self-harm, any of those things, anything that's typed into the browsers. You can basically dynamically go through and look for that content and pull reports based on that. So we have been talking about CFM and SFM starting either today or tomorrow. I don't know when it'll be coming active. It'll be here very, very soon. Again, either today or tomorrow. We have central management for the XG firewall. This does require 17.5 in order to get on here, and you can only be part of one management tool. So if you decide to test this out, it is in early access only right now. It does not have templates. It does not have any of the advanced features that we have in SFM or CFM. It is simply a jumping point to get into and manage those firewalls directly from the customer's central admin. It utilizes the synchronized security. So the same channel that you have set up for synchronized security is what you'd use to get into that. And I can show that to you here in just a second. Essentially what you'll see is inside, you'll come into the firewall management, and you'll see here that these firewalls are connected. The only thing you can do at this point is see what version they're using, the serial number. Again, this is just CM1, and you can click on that firewall, which will bring you directly into the management of that firewall. It is not a saved copy of it. You are directly logged into that firewall. The one benefit and the reason why we're leaning and moving everything towards this, eventually CFM and SFM will be replaced. I do say eventually, probably within about the next year. Once we hit CM3 is when you'll see the advanced management capabilities. The nice part on this is it does not require any WAN administration on there, so you can actually close down the web admin from your WAN on there. This tunnels in through a backend support. So basically it's going to connect up, check in with us every now and then. As you click on the firewall to get into management, it sends a support request just like we do on the backend. The firewall initiates that and builds the tunnel back to Sophos Central and for you to manage that. The next component, which is going to be coming into CM1, is going to be the rapid deployment, something you guys may want to play with on there. It's as close to a zero touch as we can get it for right now. Essentially, you're going to have a configuration file that you can set up inside of the central management, and then you can take that configuration file, put it on a USB stick, and simply plug it into the XG firewall. As it boots up, it'll pull everything from that configuration and be ready to go, be ready to be registered and brought into the actual mix. Again, this is more designed for customer focus. At this point, it is CM1. Once we get to CM2 in about 6 months, that's where we'll have grouping and things that'll actually play in for partners. And then CM3 towards the end of the year in 2019 is where we'll bring it to the partner level as well. Lastly on here, the Wave 2 access points or APXs are coming with MR1. MR1 is due out in January of next year, 2019. So that'll be available and to be managed directly from the XG firewalls. With that, we'll leave it there. And Travis, questions?
Yeah, so a lot of questions around the heartbeat as well as the VPN options here. But first of all, back to when setting up the firewall in CFM, when you set the communication mode, it can be changed later, right?
Yes, absolutely. It can be changed later. It's changed on the XG firewall itself. So if you need to go from push to fetch, that's on the firewall itself, not in CFM or SFM.
All right. So there's a question about when is the VPN available, now or coming? So
now,
yeah, it's available now. Yeah, go ahead. You
have to be on 17.5. So if you are on 17.5, you can get in now for that. So we can come into my XG firewall here. Actually, I've got the Connect client on here for Mac, so you can see what that looks like. If I can find it in my environment. So here's my Sophos Connect for Mac. That's going to go ahead and load up. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to have my Sophos Connect, which is to my local firewall here. I'm essentially dropping in a configuration on there. What this would be, if I go ahead and delete this on here, what you'll actually see is the option at the top here will just change to import connection. So this is available now. You can log in as long as it's a 17.5. So if you want to get this right now, log into your My Sophos, find your device under devices and hit download and download the 17.5 package for that. When you come under VPN, you'll see Sophos Connect client. You will need to go through and set up your options on here. And right here down at the bottom, you'll have your download. This is both Windows and Mac on there for your Sophos Connect client. So very easy to access. It is all done via the web admin, so it's not done via the user portal. It gives you this, and basically what you're going to do is once we have this all set up on there, you're going to export that configuration, and that configuration is going to be applied inside of here.
Okay, and important to note that this has no cost impact on anything. It's a free aspect of the base license, correct?
Yep, absolutely free.
Okay. All right. Moving back over to IPsec client VPN, can it auto connect?
Not yet. We are looking to have that. So part of the Sophos Connect client, and we wanted to get it out there as quick as possible. But part of what we want to do with the Sophos Connect client is to get it to where as soon as you boot up, you do have an option for an auto connect. They're still working on making sure, obviously, it's secure and it's authenticated. So they're taking their time on that one of, how do we ensure, do we make sure that, AD is configured, and then we have to pass that information along through the Sophos Connect client. So that will be coming. It's not available today. I don't have a release date for it, but yes, it is something we do want to have happen on there.
Okay, can we get a OTP push app?
So we do not have an OTP push app. We do support Duo authentication, so we're not looking to basically reinvent the wheel on there. If you are utilizing Duo authentication and you want to use that in your environment for the OTP, you absolutely can do that. You can set it up for push, or you can set it up for an option of putting in an actual token. So the XG firewall does integrate with those one-times. We do have a built-in one-time password. It does use our Sophos client on there, or the Google Authentication client, in order to bring in those one-time passwords. So we do not have a push client. I don't know that we're looking to develop and actually bring in our own push client at this point.
Okay, let's shift for time's sake over to Heartbeat. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that concept, it's the synchronization of our endpoint security product with the firewall, so that the firewall is contextually aware of what's happening at the endpoints and can take automated action based on that. The one question that is here is, can Heartbeat be used on Microsoft Direct Access connections? That is an IPv6 tunnel through IPv4.
So that's really going to depend on, because it's not going to be, so our Sophos Connect client is going to do it by default. It's going to grab those heartbeats and send them over. On the direct connect tunnel, unless you're sending all traffic. So the way Heartbeat works is traffic is passed through the XG firewall, and part of that traffic from the endpoint is a heartbeat packet. So that heartbeat packet has to be digested and picked up by the XG firewall. So heartbeat, when you're outside of your network, does not work. If you're at the local Starbucks and you don't have the Sophos Connect client on, there is no heartbeat. And obviously we can't block you from getting out on the Starbucks network. Once you come back into the network, if you're in a red state, obviously your admin already knows this through Sophos Central, but the XG firewall will see that and prevent you from getting to any of the devices in the environment, and also prevent you from getting to the internet. So if that direct access client can route the heartbeat traffic to the XG firewall, then yes, through the direct access, heartbeat would work. But typically the way direct access works is it only is routing traffic relevant for that network. Everything else is going directly out to the internet, meaning that heartbeat packet is now going out to the internet and nothing's happening to it.
Got it. Okay, is the Sophos Connect client still utilizing OpenVPN?
No. So the Sophos Connect client is an IPsec, so OpenVPN would be the SSL VPN. This is actually an IPsec VPN client. So essentially, we've built an IPsec VPN client from scratch. We've had some in the past, brought this into an absolutely free client. Most, if you take a look at an AnyConnect client or any other IPsec VPN client, they are paid for clients on there. That is the way we did it in the past as well. With this one, we decided to, basically just bring it out there for free, not trying to nickel and dime everybody when they're trying to bring more secure access into the XG firewall. We still support the AnyConnect client. We still have a Sophos full version IPsec client if you need even more configurability on there. But I think what you'll find is the Sophos Connect client will handle all of your needs on there and provide the same performance and security as the IPsec.
Great. And since there's no time left, and I don't expect you to do a demo of this, and there are some intricacies involved, a partner has got customers with firewalls as well as endpoints. They're looking to set up the synchronized security heartbeat. Can you point them to a how-to or some sort of administrative document on that?
Yeah, so essentially what you're going to want to do, we have a great section with all this information on there on your partner portal. There's a section called MSP Hub. Click on that. There's how-to documents on all of that information on there. But essentially the way synchronized security works is it's not set up against your partner account. So inside of an actual customer, so I'm inside a customer account here, Sophos Central Admin. Under people, you would have to have a super admin on this account. So if we take a look at my admins only, we can see my Steve Weber at my Test Lab US is my super admin account here. If we take a look at the actual XG firewall as well, Steve Weber at my Test Lab US, I have to have a super admin account. You'll have to set that up. Set it up against an account, an email address that has not been used on Sophos before. So if you're using Gmail or you have aliases inside of your system, Gmail, you can do a plus whatever account name you want on there, and it comes to your Gmail account. If you have aliases, set up an alias on the system for customer ABC at your domain, and they all come into one account. You will need to set up the password on there and basically accept that. Once that's accepted on there, you'll come in. You'll click on the register device, which will be right here, and put in the username and password for that customer's central admin. At this point, you can set up the security heartbeat, and you can set up the synchronized application controls. Basically, you can see all the applications running through from those endpoints. Now, if you have 17.5, you'll get this additional tab in here, which is the Manage from Sophos Central. This is the new CM one that is out there in early access. You will need to sign up for early access in Sophos Central Admin first. And again, this will tell you that if you're managing via Central, you cannot manage via SFM or CFM. You can only do one or the other. So you can have CFM set up on here or SFM or Central Management. So if you want to take one of your NFRs and test it, you can absolutely do that. You'll see Firewall Management appeared here once you accept the early access on there. and then your firewalls will be listed here. As you can see, there is no information. There's not a lot of details. This is just a jumping point. As you click on a particular firewall, it's going to tell you basically, hold on a minute. What it's doing is building a support tunnel on the back end, and then it's going to launch single sign-on into that XG firewall. So it is a direct management of the actual XG firewall. So no templates, no groups, no abilities, but this also does not require any WAN access to be opened from the web admin, using a support tunnel on the back end to tunnel into this device. Anything else, Travis?
No. I think there's quite a bit, but we don't have time to go through it all. So I guess many layers of management here. Any kind of the questions that weren't answered here, we will go back and get those addressed, and so those will be sent out to you. And for all of everyone that missed it before, this will be recorded and sent out to everyone who registered. So. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate all your time and energy that you put into this. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Steve, any last comments?
Yeah, last comments. If you have additional questions, we'll try to go through the list here and answer those as well. But if you have any additional questions, make sure you email your CAE. It's going to be East MSP at Sophos, Central MSP at Sophos, and West MSP at Sophos.com, and they'd be happy to either get those over to me or answer them if it's a sales-related question. That's
Fantastic.
all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.